recipe that you need to bloom. That you need to bloom in it.
And you put it on
Both
top.
are always, yeah. So with powder, you have your liquid in the bowl and you sprinkle your powder on top, so you get an even distribution, so it hydrates properly. Sometimes you have to stir it too, even so. But they're both bloomed. Bloomed is in a cold liquid. The second part of gelatin then is dissolved. Both have to be dissolved in hot liquid. Either sometimes just over a water bath, hot, or sometimes in a liquid like we're doing today. So I have ice cold water. I brought a container of ice. Sometimes your tap water, where at places I've worked, the tap water is not cold enough. And what happens is if your water is warm when you're doing the blooming process, it'll start to kind of pre-melt it before they soften all the way. So they need to be submerged. So I just fold them in half so they fit. You could use, if you're doing a big batch, use a bigger container. Don't shove like, a whole block of them all together without separating them, because there won't be enough water to hydrate them. Okay. So the next step we have to do is unmolding the cakes. So baking them 375, once cooled, remove from the sheet pan and cut them out into discs, okay? So you need a 5.5-inch disc, it tells you, because I showed you that the cake itself has to go inset. This is a 6-inch circle, so you can't cut a 6-inch circle, otherwise you'll see it, right? So it has to be inset. And I found that the top of this Bain Marie just happens to be 5.5 perfectly, okay? So that I can use as a guide. Just fits. If you cut too small, if you use the bottom of them, you'll have a big space, and when you cut into the cake, it looks like you're kind of cheating people on cake. There's not enough cake layer, and you won't have enough mousse that way too. So same concept of when we cut our cakes down yesterday, the day before, when we lined our mold, right? Same idea. You don't want to wipe the mousse off of it. So to unmold the cake, I'm going to run my spatula around the outside of the cake. Invert it onto my cutting board. If it doesn't stick, usually just one edge. Pull back. We'll let you feel it out. Pull my paper off. Okay, and then cut your disc out. Now each cake is going to use 2 discs of cake, but you can get obviously more than that out of here, which is good in case one's not pretty or your cake's not level, or I don't know, one side is more crispy than the other. Use your knife, cut your disc out. So you're going to go through and cut all your disc layers out. And we'll just do here, eat some cake.
Thank you. Oh, there goes my cake.
I wanted her to share. I wasn't playing favorites.
She said her alarm to go off at the perfect time.
She did. Want to taste it?
What?
It's very plain, but the texture is a little bit different than the Genoise. It's not quite as spongy.
I put it for 10 minutes, but they keep opening and closing it. Is that good?
Yeah, touch the top of it and feel. You don't want too much color. You have to see if it feels set. It looks like it is done to me. It's a little bit more, texture's a little bit different, no? Than the Genoise? What do you think?
Sweeter. Sweeter.
Who's choking on it?
Yes.
I got my disc now. Boom, boom, boom. Keep this one. There's another one I can have too. Okay. So next I'm moving on to my mousse. Alright, and let's quickly the gelatin works. And if the water's cold, this can sit in here indefinitely. It's not gonna start to melt in there. Okay, so the next step, making the mousse and assembly. Alright, so if you read the first directions for the mousse, let's start with that. It tells you to measure out the puree and split the puree in half, okay, by eye. So what we need to do is heat something up to heat this gelatin, to dissolve the gelatin, right? And you could just warm up the whole mass of it, but then you have to cool it all down, okay? So we heat up half of it. This has the sugar in here already and some chopped thyme for the apricot thyme. If you have zest, you put it in this. If you have spice, you put it in this because you want the warmth to kind of bring out the essential oils, dissolve any of your flavorings. If you have vanilla bean or something, right, it goes into your warm portion. I'm not trying to cook this out at all. I'm just trying to get it maybe like just to a simmer, so it'll be hot enough to melt my gelatin and also dissolve the sugar. Okay, I have my stock syrup done. For the gelatin sheets and small recipes like this, you have to be really careful to squeeze out the water, because just this excess water in a recipe can change the consistency, the gelling or the setting quality of it if you leave too much in. Squeeze it out really well. Yes.